or condo and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Timmy, everybody. Great job. Next up for our 5th grade class recital, we have Samantha.
10 times better performance can make a big difference. Castrol Edge Motor Oil gives your engine 10 times better high-stress performance. Castrol Edge, better oil for maximum performance. Now through December 28th, Castrol Edge and Edge High Mileage Motor Oil are on rollback at Walmart.
Claim based on sequence 9 test under high-load conditions versus API-SP test limits.
Progressive presents Renter's MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Joe Fallon's bedroom mini fridge. Sure, this pint-sized chiller's max capacity is 3 soda cans, but what it lacks in stature, it makes up in cooling strength. Each beverage a perfect 37 degrees every time. And the 2 feet Joe walks to get a drink, priceless. That's why his mini fridge is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
No way football is played in the fall and winter
because the hits don't hurt as much when you're numb. Get the lowdown on all the sports action coming up right here.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
It's the place to be on a Football Friday. It's Football Full Circle, live all across the SportsGrid Radio Network, Sirius XM Channel 159. He's the mastermind of the pigskin. That is Joe Lisi. I am Ben Stevens. Week number 2 of the NFL season already underway on a Thursday night in Miami. We will break down and recap what happened on a Thursday in South Florida between the Dolphins and the Bills in that big-time AFC East divisional matchup. We will also look forward to the entirety of the Week 2 Sunday slate. Picks, breakdowns, and bets for everything you need to know for every game on Sunday here in the second weekend of the NFL regular season. Joe, let's dive right in as we look at Thursday night football. On paper, a huge divisional matchup. And 2 things can happen and live in harmony in my expectation. The Bills had a dominant performance in that divisional duel against the Dolphins, up 24-10 at the break, a pick 6 on Miami's first offensive possession of the third quarter. Buffalo led 31-10, a significant victory early in the season with the divisional ramifications. But of course, the game and the result slightly overshadowed by an unfortunate accident at the midway through the third quarter. Tua Tagovailoa on 4th and 4, driving into Bills territory, takes off, scrambles, and in a collision with Buffalo safety Damar Hamlin, is on the turf, exits the game with a concussion. Of course, for Tua Tagovailoa, who had his 2022 season marred by multiple head injuries, it was a scary situation and an unfortunate incident in the game. He exited the game midway through the third quarter, did not return. We have talked a lot about Tua Tagovailoa's future in football. We've got some reaction from Mike McDaniel that happened earlier this morning as well.
Yeah, on the circumstances are very sympathetic, right? You don't want to see Tua get hurt, and more importantly, risk his athletic career from now until whenever he decides not to play. But this is a cause of concern because of the 3 concussions, because of how he's looked after being hit completely out on his feet. A lot of doctors that I saw, and watched that tape said that's definitely concussion, and it's not just that one hit, it's a culmination of all the hits together that he needs to obviously, stay out of, and rest up on. And that is the cause of concern from Tua's side. From the Miami Dolphins side, though, Ben, it's a bigger picture, right? Now what do they do moving forward for the team aspect? They were completely outplayed in regards to the interior offense and defensive lines, in my opinion. And again, big picture, Mike McDaniel has to answer these questions because when he faces above average opponents, this team fails to respond for whatever reason. And that's the biggest thing. I do not believe they are a contender in the AFC East, even if Tua was 100% healthy.
And Mike McDaniel met with the media earlier on this Friday morning in the hours since the defeat last night inside Hard Rock Stadium, saying this, quote, "I totally get that's where people want to go," in reference to Tua Tagovailoa's future in football, and then continued, quote, "I just wish for a second people would hear what I'm saying, that bringing up his future is not in the best interest of him," end quote. And Mike McDaniel is right, Joe. We can speculate, as many former NFL players did last night, that Tua Tagovailoa should hang it up. But it's not our decision. It's not Mike McDaniel's decision. It's Tua Tagovailoa's decision with his family, his loved ones, and the medical staff to determine what is next, whether that's this season, next week, weeks after, whatever that may look like. Those determinations will be made, and we'll provide the updates when they do. We wish the best for Tua Tagovailoa as a football player and a human being. Head injuries are a very dangerous part of sport, of course, in football, and there is so much still that is uncertain surrounding them. It is different than an ankle, an arm, a shoulder, a knee. It is very, very different. We wish Tua Tagovailoa the best. Now, as for the actual football result, Joe, while Tua was in there, a struggle offensively for Miami. He threw 3 interceptions last night, including the pick 6 on the opening offensive possession for the Fins in the second half. Jamarcus Ingram bringing it back 31 yards for Buffalo. The Bills were fully in control. James Cook, a guy that we highlighted multiple times on the show yesterday, who you had an anytime touchdown bet on, not 1, not 2, 3 scores for James Cook by the time we got to the halftime break. Buffalo was the far better team. The Bills win outright as a 2.5-point underdog, 31-10.
Yeah, he was plus 165 for an anytime touchdown. For 3 touchdowns, you probably could have gotten 20-1. This was a player that only had 2 rushing touchdowns all last year in regards to that performance, and he stepped up, caught the first pass for a 17-yard touchdown. They utilized him in the short to intermediate passing game early, 1 catch, and then got that ground game going. Him and sweet baby Ray Davis were down the front 7 of Miami. Yeah. Now, again, this comes down to the offensive line and the Buffalo Bills' identity, right? We saw it last week in regards to them running the football with Josh Allen, James Cook, and Ray Davis. And Miami's inability, at least now in the first couple of weeks, to shut down the run consistently. Jacksonville rushed for over 100 yards and over 4 yards per carry. Buffalo continued that. And until Miami could fix that, Ben, no matter who's quarterback, Dan Marino could come back. They're not going to compete for an AFC championship with that front 7.
And only 108 yards, Joe, in what really did not need to be an offensive second half for Buffalo, especially after the early pick 6 to start the third quarter. Khalil Shakir, the leading receiver last night for the Bills, 5 grabs, 5 targets, 54 yards. Josh Allen, 13 of 19, 139 yards, and that early touchdown toss to James Cook. Tough beat for me. First drive of the game, James Cook scores on a 17-yard TD reception. He did not have another catch throughout the rest of the game. I like the over of 19.5 receiving yards for Cook, but 11 carries for 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sweet baby Ray Davis, 9 carries, 29 yards as well. Again, they didn't need to do much or throw much out there offensively in the second half, led by Joe Brady, the OC. As we look at the ramifications of this game, not just a big road victory for Buffalo, not just winning outright on the road. Of course, because of the uncertainty around Tua Tagovailoa and his status moving forward, the Miami Dolphins took a big hit in terms of the odds market. But these two teams, Joe, entered the start of week 2 as co-favorites in the AFC East, each at plus 180. Now Buffalo, the short favorite, nearly $1 in front of the New York Jets, plus 105. This Bills organization, 4 consecutive AFC East divisional titles. Some, Joe, thought because of the new look on both sides of the football in this Buffalo roster, there would be a fall-off this year in Western New York. How do you feel about the Bills after 2 games?
I feel great. And again, I still thought that they were best team in terms of the AFC East, and we talked about their price to win the AFC Championship at the start of the year. Plus 950 was live because of Josh Allen and because of the expectations weren't on their back, right? I mean, nobody was really expecting Buffalo to compete with Kansas City. It was Baltimore and Cincinnati, and I understand those looks, right? And rightfully so, but Josh Allen can transform a game. He has playmakers now in terms of the backfield with a dynamic running back in James Cook, 2 big tight ends with Knox and Kincaid, and they're built to run the football. Again, that's the way they built it towards the end of the regular season last year. Yep. Think about this. They won the game. Keon Coleman had no catches last night. Yeah. I don't even, what did he have, 2 targets? They won the game without their number 1 wide receiver having the single catch. And when you force turnovers and run the football, you can win a lot of matchups, and that's what they did last night.
Forced a ton of turnovers, and the key for Josh Allen, which has been his fair criticism throughout his career, especially in the last few years, where Buffalo's expectation was Super Bowl or bust, or at least AFC Championship game, has been his ability to turn the football over, and not in a good way. His propensity, probably a better way of saying it. He has not turned the football over at least through 2 weeks for Buffalo. The Bills now tied for the second best price to win the AFC at a 6-1 number alongside Baltimore. Still more than $3 behind Kansas City, but the shortest number we have seen on the Bills to contend for the conference all year long. More FFC next.
Fall is coming.
Don't look like an idiot at work.
Know your stuff.
Football and everything else.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Wisconsin officials were working Thursday to retrieve a boat that sank during the search for a missing diver in Lake Michigan. Multiple agencies joined the search for 72-year-old Patrick Kelly of Winthrop Harbor, Illinois, after he failed to surface Tuesday while driving around the wreck of the SS Wisconsin about 6 miles off the coast of Pleasant Prairie. Searchers recovered Kelly's body Wednesday. Kenosha County officials say they are working with the State Department of Natural Resources to retrieve the boat. A Northern California man has been arrested on a federal complaint alleging he assaulted Frontier Airlines flight attendants after takeoff, forcing the San Francisco-bound flight to divert to another airport. The 30-year-old Fremont man is charged with interference with flight crew members and attendants. The passenger allegedly shouted obscenities at flight attendants, attempted to choke a flight attendant, kicked another attendant in the leg, and said he was going to kill everybody on the September 9th flight out of John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana. He faces a statutory maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison. I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
If I was to describe this sandwich in one word, I would say magical. Hi, this is Jamore, and the little thing that I love about the Chick-fil-A honey pepper pimento chicken sandwich is that extra oomph. I go back and forth from the spicy filet to the original filet. I get into the sweetness of the honey, then you have the extra kick from the spicy filet. The combination alone takes it over the top. It's award-winning.
The Chick-fil-A Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is back with a bite. Try it with the original or spicy filet, now for a limited time. Real guests paid for their testimonial.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Fall is almost here.
It's time to stow the lawnmower and get ready for all that glorious action coming your way. Stay tuned to SportsGrid for all the strategies, angles, and info you need to get the winning edge. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
We're live right here on Football Full Circle. It is FFC. All right, Lisi Guy, week 2 now already underway. As we do on these Football Fridays on FFC, we dive through the entirety of the Week 2 Sunday slate. We go in chronological order as we see it here with some quick breakdowns, previews, and picks. The Cowboys and the Saints, home opener at the Star after a triumphant win for Dallas in Cleveland, outright as a 2.5-point underdog. The Saints absolutely thrashing Carolina last week in the Superdome. They won 47-10, again, easily covering as a field goal plus favorite. Now the Cowboys 6.5-point favorite, total at 46.5. Two teams that got off to impressive openings, Joe, to begin 2024. What gives on Sunday at the Star?
I'm going to lay it with Dallas. The fact that they're playing at home and they're going up against that offense, even though they put up 47 total points, that was against Carolina. I'm talking about the Saints. I'm going with Dak Prescott. I'm going with C.D. Lamb, Brandon Cooks, and expect a breakout in my opinion, with Jake Ferguson. Big tight end type of game when you go up against a pretty good defense and front seven in New Orleans. Don't know if they can run it, but I still go to the speed of Dallas. Here's the other thing, too. I think it does trend to the under. What is it, 46.5 right now in regards to multiple books? Because I think the only way that New Orleans could potentially win this matchup, Ben, is if they keep it low scoring, if they keep it 20-14 in that matter. That's a huge ask, but I'm going to lay it with Dallas and go to the under.
Yeah, I think that's the right way of looking at it as well, Joe. I think Dallas could be included in a couple of teasers if you want to bring the Cowboys down to a pick. But I actually do believe that under a touchdown with where the line is at 6.5, I would lean to the Cowboys covering. I think there's a lot of optimism on New Orleans, but they were kind of the overlooked team in the NFC South during preseason and offseason handicapping after a disappointing season last year with Derek Carr. They did end the year averaging more than 23.5 points per game. That was top 10 in terms of scoring offense. They scored the most points of any team in week number 1, 47. In fact, the only team to score 40 plus, but they did struggle offensively to start the year, 9th worst scoring offense in the opening month and a half. Playoff rematch in the Motor City between the Lions and the Bucs. And Detroit laying more than a touchdown, 7.5 against Baker and the Buccaneers. Total at 51.5. It's the highest number for week 2. Both teams a home victory to start off the season. Detroit in overtime. Sunday Night Football over the Rams, covering 4.5-point favorite. The Bucs looking really good against Jaden Daniels in his Commanders debut. 37-20 at home. And wasn't really even all that close. Tampa easily covering as a 3.5-point favorite. Now, as more than a touchdown underdog, what happens in Detroit on Sunday?
Yeah, at the start of the week, I like Tampa, and I'm shocked at this line movement over a key number of 7 to almost make it 7.5, 8. I mean, the market loves Detroit right now. I understand they got the cover against the Rams, which I think is going to be a contender, even with the offensive line issues. Yeah. But I'm dialing it back now. I'm still going to pick Tampa Bay, Ben, with the 7.5 because I believe in Baker. I believe in that offense with Rashad White as well. But this line does scare me. This is a Detroit Lion line. I mean, there's begging you to take the 7.5. I'm going to take it reluctantly, but I will say this. I'm buying into the over 51.5. I think both offenses could potentially eat. We saw Baker have success against that secondary. So I'm gonna shift. Still like Tampa with the points, but I think the best play in this game is the over 51.5.
Of course, it was Detroit's second playoff win in 32 years, getting past Tampa last year at home inside Ford Field, 31-23. They did cover as a 6.5-point home favorite. Tampa did have the football back, under 2.5 minutes remaining deep in their own territory. Baker threw his second pick of the game, but did compile 349 yards and 3 touchdowns. Joe, both of these secondaries ranked in the bottom 6 in terms of yards given up last year, both set to improve defensively this year, but that total was 49.5 last time they met in the postseason in January. It went over. This is the highest total of the weekend. Both teams really good in these spots a season ago. Detroit was 11-5 against the number as a favorite. They cover against LA. Tampa was 9-4 against the spread as an underdog. One of those 4 non-covers in the postseason against Detroit, winning outright 6 times in those 9 covers. Quarterback play in question this week on display in Jacksonville. The Jags a 3-point home favorite against Deshaun Watson and Cleveland. Of course, Deshaun Watson was brought up in another lawsuit, accused of sexual wrongdoing and assault. That person who came forward with the lawsuit is going to meet with the National Football League, as Deshaun has done throughout all of the 24 civil lawsuits. He maintains his innocence. But in terms of actual football, Deshaun has been absolutely abysmal. In the 12 games he has played as the Cleveland Browns quarterback, could not happen to a worse guy. Will the offense figure it out for Cleveland in Jacksonville on Sunday? The Jags a 3-point home favorite.
Well, this is a rematch from last year. Remember, it was Flacco going up against Trevor Lawrence, and Flacco outdueled him, I believe, with a 300-yard performance. Trevor Lawrence did have 3 interceptions in regards to that matchup. Now they come back home. I like Jacksonville. I think Jacksonville laying a field goal in Duval County, Penn, is the difference. I will say this. I don't know the offensive identity with Cleveland right now. Do they want to run it? Do they want to throw it? I love the over. This is my favorite over of the week. Over the 41.5. Party over. That's it. My best bet of the week. 41.5.
So if it's a party over, can I even join? Because I also think that we see stopped him in his tracks. The algo's updating on the early line, Joe. This was my alt line play in the pick six, over 46.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm on it too. All right. I guess we gotta go for it. He can't even contain himself. Are you doing this on purpose?
I'm being honest, and then you say something, and I know that I am going to anger you in my response and my handicap. And when you got stopped dead in your tracks, as you can see each other now, and maybe you are watching some of the live stream, if you're not listening strictly on SportsGrid Radio, stop dead in his tracks. But then you even heard him go, ugh, when I mentioned the alt line of the pick six over in Jacksonville. Lisi loves it, so do I. More Week 2 handicaps next.
There's smart
and there's not smart.
Not smart is hope as a strategy. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Keep it here
and win. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. The SportsGrid Radio Network presents This Date in Sports History.
1978, the Yankees come from 14 games down to take sole possession of the AL East against the Red Sox. Both teams were tied after 162 games with 99 wins, so it was a one-game playoff between the Yankees and Red Sox to determine the AL East. Yankees shortstop Bucky Dent.
I've never played in a game with more pressure than I did in that one game in October.
For SportsGrid Radio, I'm Mike DeMurgis.
The Technology Minute with George Capalbo.
Purdue University physicists have opened the world's first quantum disco with the world's tiniest disco ball. And by tiny, I mean a disco ball 1/100th the width of a human hair, made of glowing fluorescent nanodiamonds levitating inside a pure vacuum, spinning 1.2 billion times per minute. The point? Not to improve your platform shoe disco finger, but to simulate what happens to qubits inside a quantum computer. Computing power that could be 150 billion times faster than yesterday's supercomputer. And that's a lot cooler than John Travolta doing the funky chicken. Follow me at Chica Palvo on X and stay tuned to the Technology Minute for more cool stuff like this.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Wherever you go,
there you are.
Download the SportsGrid mobile app and we'll be right there with you.
So now you can get the winning edge
anywhere, even while the wife's talking to you.
if you've got an earbud.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
The boys are seeing the board the same way, and Joe loves it as we get you set for the Week 2 Sunday slate live right here on Football Full Circle. We each equally love the over of 41.5 in Duval County on Sunday between the Browns and the Jags, which leads us to Minneapolis. The Vikings impressive in MetLife, dominating the New York Giants 28-6. Now the home opener in the Twin Cities for Sam Darnold and the Vikes. They host the San Francisco 49ers. San Fran, 5.5-point road favorite. 46.5 is the over-under. Joe, we do not expect Christian McCaffrey to play Week 2 against Minnesota. What do you like?
This is a tough one. I still like San Francisco. They showed me something in regards to, the physicality of the offensive line. Now I will say Sam Darnold knows that defense, right? Second team going up against that secondary, he should have some success. But I still lean to San Francisco laying the 5.5. but I think I might take a shot on the over. 46.5 without McCaffrey. Jefferson wants to eat in the Dome. Last time they played, that was the Kirk Cousins game that he knocked them off last year, where they lost 3 straight. That was a dead under,
Correct.
wasn't it? I might go over here, so give me San Francisco, different outcome. San Fran and the over in regards to this ballgame.
-5.5, the number in favor of the Niners. No rushing yards props out at this moment for San Francisco, which could tell you there's still a little bit of uncertainty in the backfield. Is it Jordan Mason? Is it Christian McCaffrey? The Niners did cover last week, only laying 3.5 at home against the New York Jets. They have been favored in every single football game dating back to the start of last year in 2023. They are now 10-11 against the number in the 21 games booked as a favorite. Tied for the second shortest total of the weekend. 38.5 is the number in Charlotte. Boy, oh boy, the Panthers might still be very, very bad. It's game number 2 for the Chargers under Jim Harbaugh. LA, 4.5-point road favorite against Carolina, Joe. Can the Panthers show a little bit of life here in game number 2 of year 2 under Bryce Young?
I think they can. I think this is the one, where you look at week 1 to week 2 and you say, where is there maybe a trap spot in regards to that divisional game for the Chargers? They grind out a 12-point win over the Raiders. They go now on the more to the East Coast in regards to this matchup, 1:00 kick. Give me the Carolina Panthers. I don't love the total, 38.5, right in that area is scary in regards to that. It could go either way, lean to the over, but I like Carolina, live dog. Give me the plus 154. I think they win it outright.
It's been a struggle for the Panthers, even covering numbers. Of course, they did not cover last week in New Orleans. They lost by 37. They have been an underdog in all 18 games since the start of last season. Just 4-12-2 against the spread. My favorite play in this game, J.K. Dobbins, over 55.5 rushing yards. Listen to Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman when they tell you they are taking the onus off of Justin Herbert in establishing the run and that ground game. Dobbins last week, 10 carries for $135 and a touchdown. I think he is the lead back. I still think the number is light. The Panthers allowed 180 yards last week to New Orleans on the ground, and Derek Brown, one of the best interior D linemen in the league that you probably have never heard of because he sadly for him plays in Carolina, is now out for the remainder of the season. Joe, largest spread of the weekend, 8.5 points in the Charm City in favor of the Ravens as they host the Raiders. Total 41.5. Is the spread a little bit too steep in favor of the Flock?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my better bets for the weekend. I like the Raiders plus the 8.5. Like Zamir White to blow through his total because I think they're going to have to run the football. Can't get into a shootout with Lamar Jackson. I think the game does trend to the under, but I like the Raiders on the road here. I know Baltimore, a dominant home team, and Lamar's very good against mediocre competition in this spot. But give me the Raiders. The numbers suggest dog in terms of this matchup. I'm taking the points.
Antonio Pierce, now the permanent head coach, not great in his permanent debut last week in L.A. against the Bolts. They lost that game 22-10, L.A. covering as a field goal favorite at home. But as the interim head coach last year for the final 9 games, they won 5 outright. They covered in 7, 7-1-1 against the spread, an underdog in 7 of those games. The Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots, Joe. Seattle, 3.5-point road favorite in Foxborough. 38.5 is the total, again, tied for the second lowest alongside that game between the Chargers and the Panthers. Those are the numbers. We'll get Lisi's thoughts on this game and plenty more as we continue to dive through the Week 2 Sunday slate around the National Football League. We've got some games to fire through in the early window, and then we'll talk a little college football, the marquee matchups in Week 3, and on this Friday night. That's next here on Football Full Circle on SportsGrid Radio.
The winning edge.
You've got it.
But not everybody has it because not everybody listens to us.
But we're working on that.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Progressive presents the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders. College football on Thursday. Arizona State improved to 3-0 with a 31-28 win at Texas State. 4 touchdowns, 268 passing yards for Joe McLeod. South Alabama ran away with an 87-10 victory over Northwestern State. 2 games on the schedule tonight. 1-1 Kansas at home against 2-0 UNLV. Top 20 matchup for number 14 Kansas State. The 2-0 Wildcats hosting the 2-0 Arizona Wildcats, who are number 20.
Back to pass. Allen wide open to Cook in the left flat, racing to the end zone. And is he in? Yes, he is. The Cook has found the kitchen.
The action on Bills Radio, 31-10, the win over the Dolphins last night in Miami. Buffalo 2-0 with the win. The Dolphins dropped to 1-1. Bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. That's the SportsGrid Sports Flash. I'm Chuck Sanders.
Progressive presents Renters MVP's Most Valuable Possessions. Today's MVP, Emily Neal's 70-inch TV. Because after watching her second-grade students yell at each other for hours, there's nothing Emily enjoys more than watching super rich housewives also yell at each other. Why? Because those women are not her responsibility. And that's why her TV is today's MVP. Keep your most valuable possessions protected by bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and other insurers not available in all states.
You might wonder, John Legend, how do you keep your voice sounding so legendary? Honey. And how do I keep my protection against COVID-19 up to date? With a COVID shot this season, designed for recent variants.
You can get your COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC.
The fresher, the better.
Ask your healthcare provider about getting this season's COVID-19 shot when getting your flu shot.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Days are getting cooler.
The shadows are getting longer.
You know what that means? It's football weather. So bundle up and keep it here for all the latest strategies and gridiron information.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Live right here on Football Full Circle, it's FFC. All right, Lacey Guy, we mentioned it right before the break as we came up on the commercial. Seattle, 3.5-point road favorite in Foxborough. 38.5 is the total between the Seahawks and the Patriots. The Pats, potentially the most surprising result of week number 1, winning 16-10 outright as a 7.5-point underdog in Cincinnati. Seattle, pretty comfortable at home despite the final score against Denver. They won 26-20, covering as a 5.5-point favorite. What do you like here inside Gillette on Sunday?
I think it's Seattle. I can't look New England. I mean, again, New England grounded out a victory. I like the under, though, 38.5, because, again, the MO of the Patriots is to run Ramondre Stevenson, work off a play action, get this game into the fourth quarter, a la Vic Fangio style type of offense, right? Try to get it into the fourth quarter and lose it by 4. So Seattle, very defensive-minded coach. They held Denver to 99 yards on the ground. If I had to pick a side, I would lean Seattle, but I'll take the under. I think the under is the best play.
Yeah, it is interesting, Joe. I don't really know where the Patriots find their points. They won last week 16-10. They had 63 offensive plays, limiting the Bengals to only 48. I really like Seattle in this spot. I'd lay the 3.5. I think it's an overreactionary line to what the Patriots did against the Bengals. I do not believe New England is going to be very good this year. Like 16.5 over rushing attempts for Ramondre Stevenson. 25 last week for $120. That is the staple of the offense moving forward for New England. All right, next up we go to Green Bay. Malik Willis slated to start for the Packers as they host the Indianapolis Colts. 40.5 is the number. The Pack, a 3-point home underdog in the home debut in Lambeau. Which side do you lean?
I like Green Bay. Again, I think lower scoring under the 40.5, whether it's Malik Willis on the ground. I still believe in Josh Jacobs. And I believe in that defense. Playing in Lambeau is the difference. I give the edge, obviously, to LaFleur over Steichen. Not a knock in regards to his coaching, but AR in this spot, it's a little suspect for me, even with Malik Willis. That is completely one-dimensional. I think it's a low-scoring game, and Packers win 17-13.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the thought there, Joe, as well. Anthony Richardson to find pay dirt plus 150. If there is going to be scoring, maybe it's the quarterback for Indy. 5 games in his NFL career, only 3 of them fully completed games, and he still has 5 rushing touchdowns. Did score last week at home against the Texans. Joe, for Green Bay, Malik Willis gets the start. We have detailed his career, the thought process around him in the NFL draft cycle in 2022. He's only made 3 starts. Came during his rookie season in Tennessee. He has not thrown a touchdown in his career. He has 3 interceptions. Steady diet of Josh Jacobs, I would say, against this Indianapolis front on Sunday. The New York Jets laying 3.5 on the road in Nashville against the Titans. Listen, not an easy logistical start of the year for the Jets. They were on the road in Santa Clara Monday night. So they're out in Northern California. They fly home on a short week for a few days to get rested and ready, and then back out to Nashville to take on the Titans. The scheduling, travel, tough. The Titans, if Will Levis is the quarterback, never going to be good news. 3.5-point spread in favor of Gang Green. I'd lay the number.
Yeah, I would take it just because of the key number of 3.5. I don't love it, but I would lean to the over as my best play. I mean, again, Aaron Rodgers is there. We know about the turnovers for Will Levis, even on the road. That's always a possibility, right? So I think 41, you're talking about 23-20 final, where it's right on the number, right? And that's what I'm hoping on. I would take my best bet in this game is the over, but I would lean to the points with the extra half at home.
Current concern for me with New York on Monday night, week 1 in San Francisco. Not Aaron Rodgers looking a little rusty at 40 years old, coming back from the torn Achilles. It was the defense allowing 32 points, and frankly, could have been worse than that. Jake Moody had to kick 6 field goals, and he made all 6. I would expect a better defensive performance out of the Jets if they are going to cover on the road and win their first game of this season. They've only been booked as a favorite, Joe, 9 times under Robert Saleh. Have the New York Jets. That's since the start of 2021. They're 5-4 straight up in those 9 games. The only team that has been booked as a favorite less in the last 3+ years is the other team from New York, the Giants. And they're not a favorite on the road in Washington on Sunday. The Commanders, minus 126. Money line, laying 1.5. Total 42 and a hook. Will Jaden Daniels get the first win of his NFL career on Sunday?
I think he will, even though the Giants and Daniel Jones have owned the Washington Commanders. That's the one team that Daniel Jones has stepped up against. But the line, to me, is indicative of a Washington winning cover with Jaden Daniels. I know what I have in terms of the Washington offense. I don't know what I have in regards to the identity with Daniel Jones. Are they going to run it? Are they going to throw it? I lean to the over here. It opened at 41.5. We're seeing 42.5 in regards to this matchup. At some point, you got to take a shot. Daniel Jones needs to open it up. But I like the over, but I'm going to lay the 1.5. I think it's a cheap price. I think I would put Washington, based off that performance last week, 3-point favorites, even though they lost.
And that's what scares me a little bit, Joe. I think this line is begging you to say the Commanders are just better outright at home than the G-Men, but I'm never betting on the Giants this year. Jaden Daniels in his debut, actually not bad in terms of the rookie quarterbacks we saw on display, more than 170 passing yards, but 55 of them coming in that final drive when the game was really out of control in Tampa. Close to a pick'em in Washington. Very close to a pick'em in the desert out in Arizona. The Cardinals, a slight favorite at home against the LA Rams, minus 120.5 in favor of Arizona. 47 in a hook is the total. Joe, this is the first time with Jonathan Gannon, who became the head coach of the Cards to start 2023, that Arizona will be booked as a favorite. Is it the right line?
No, I like the Rams, and I don't care. I don't care that they have offensive line issues. You got the coaching advantage. You have Cooper Kupp that over 100 yards. I really like the Rams here. I don't think they should be dogs here, even though it's Kyler and they covered. Give me the 102 on the money line. I don't even want the 1.5.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'm sorry to say to you, Lacey guy, but I do think the Rams are the right side. Listen, the reason the spread is the way it is the injury concern. Puka Nacua out and 3 offensive linemen who might miss this game, each tackle with Rob Havenstein on the right side and Joe Noteboom on the left. We'll see if they can figure it out. But Arizona did not really pressure the quarterback a ton last year, just 33 sacks I think the Rams are the better side. I think the Rams get a victory. Keep an eye on Cooper Kupp. 84.5 is now his receiving yards prop. 7.5 receptions. Banged up in 2022. Really kind of took a back seat in 2023, still struggling through injuries. When you think about his Triple Crown season, when he led the National Football League in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, he was Stafford's guy. 84.5 might be light if the Rams can win this football game. Marquee matchup of the Sunday slate, Joe. Sunday afternoon in Arrowhead. It's the Chiefs and the Bengals. Kansas City, 5.5-point favorite, 47 and a hook. Just some injury news. Not that we expected Hollywood Brown to play week 2, but he's now been placed on the IR. He is undergoing surgery on that injured shoulder. We're not exactly sure when we're going to see Hollywood Brown this season.
Yeah, it's a blow, right? Hopefully he'll be ready middle to late in regards to the regular season. You can get him for a playoff run. Joe Burrow, 3-1 straight up against Kansas City, 70% completion percentage, averaged 313 yards a game, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. I gotta take Burrow in a bounce back. Give me Cincinnati plus the 5.5, and that total is high. Give me the over.
47.5 is that number. Lisa, guy, it's been so fascinating, this budding rivalry, right? The Bengals are really the only team since Patrick Mahomes became a starter with an active quarterback still, as Tom Brady did knock them off in that first AFC Championship game. But the Bengals are really the only team that have stood in the way of KC. They won the first 3 matchups between Burrow and Mahomes, including that 2021 AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. KC did respond the following year in 2022. A final thought on that game, the final 2 games of the Sunday slate into college football. All of that next on FFC.
Yeah, it's getting cooler. Football weather is here. Stay tuned for all the latest odds, strategies, and info. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.
Wisconsin officials were working Thursday to retrieve a boat that sank during the search for a missing diver in Lake Michigan. Multiple agencies joined the search for 72-year-old Patrick Kelly of Winthrop Harbor, Illinois, after he failed to surface Tuesday while driving around the wreck of the SS Wisconsin about 6 miles off the coast of Pleasant Prairie. Searchers recovered Kelly's body Wednesday. Kenosha County officials say they are working with the State Department of Natural Resources to retrieve the boat. A Northern California man has been arrested on a federal complaint alleging he assaulted Frontier Airlines flight attendants after takeoff, forcing the San Francisco-bound flight to divert to another airport. The 30-year-old Fremont man is charged with interference with flight crew members and attendants. The passenger allegedly shouted obscenities at flight attendants, attempted to choke a flight attendant, kicked another attendant in the leg, and said he was going to kill everybody on the September 9th flight out of John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana. He faces a statutory maximum sentence of 20 years in federal prison.
I'm Trey Westerberg with the SportsGrid News Flash.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
Life insurance. Why are you putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think you don't need it? There's lots of excuses for putting off life insurance. But if you weren't there, who would pay the mortgage and other bills? With Ethos, you could be covered in 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at getethos.com. That's getethos.com.
Ask any player and they'll tell you any advantage is important. That's where we come in. SportsGrid delivers gaming strategies and analysis 7 days a week.
The winning edge.
It's your advantage to more winning more often. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
We finish out the Week 2 Sunday slate around the National Football League here on FFC. Joe, KC, 5.5-point favorite against Cincinnati on Sunday inside Arrowhead. 47.5 is the total. The budding rivalry in the AFC since Joe Burrow became the starter in 2020 in Cincinnati. The Bengals took the first 3, 2 late season, regular season matchups, and of course the triumph in overtime in the 2021 AFC Championship game. Kansas City responded with an AFC title win the next year, went on to win a Super Bowl championship, and then last year winning late in the regular season when the Chiefs needed it, not against Joe Burrow and the Bengals, but the Bengals led by Jake Browning. It is interesting, though, because since beating the Chiefs in that 2021 AFC title game, the next 3 years to start the regular season, including week number 1 last week against New England, they have lost their season opener, booked as a touchdown favorite at least in the previous 2 years, both 2022 and last season. They have started winless 0-2. The odds makers expect the same. You got to think at a certain point the Bengals bucked that trend. 5.5, a pretty big reactionary spread based on the results of week 1.
Yeah, they lose this game, they could be dead and buried in regards to the Bengals. I mean, you can't do it each and every year, start out in regards to a deficit, right? That weighs on a team, and knowing the outside circumstances, Jamar Chase not happy with a contract right now, even though they threw a ton of money supposedly at him. T. Higgins banged up with nagging injuries. What does that mean for the mindset of the team? And we still don't know. We saw Burrow with that video. Was he 100%? I mean, that is a cause of concern. He throws for 164 yards this week. Then that's it. They're done. If he's not 100%, they're not going anywhere, Ben.
Yeah, listen, we'll see exactly what happened. The infamous now water bottle, Gatorade bottle, sideline video that Joe Burrow doesn't really know about, but was moving around his wrist. He said the wrist injury and surgery that he had in the offseason is not a detriment by any means. 228.5, 229 in the hook. His passing yards prop on Sunday against Mahomes and the Chiefs, who, by the way, at home, 28, 27, and 3 against the spread as the home favorite, with Mahomes as the starting quarterback since 2018. Let's head out to Denver. The Broncos host the Steelers. This, the lowest total of the weekend, 36.5. It's game 2 and the Denver debut of Bo Nix. They're getting 2.5 points at home against more than likely Justin Fields and the Steelers.
Big bad Bo Nix, huh? He struggled a little bit last week, 134 yards. I go to Justin Fields. Laying the 2.5, I think he breaks out. I don't know if the game goes over because I think that defense will contain Bo Nix. But I think Justin Fields does throw for over 200, maybe adds another 50 on the ground. Give me the Steelers. Really like the look. And I think Justin Fields will continue to start if he starts the season 2-0.
Lacey, guy, last week the Steelers, of course, were an underdog. They won outright. They've been a dog now 12 times since the start of 2023, and they have won outright in 7 of those 12 games. We know how good Pittsburgh is as an underdog under Mike Tomlin. They're laying 2.5 here on the road. In the last 2 years, since the start of 2022, they're actually not bad covering numbers as a favorite either, 8-5 against the spread. We'll see what Bo Nix can do after 2 interceptions thrown in his very first game of his NFL career. Not a great debut either for Caleb Williams, but Chicago's special teams and defense comes through for the victory last week at Soldier Field. Sunday Night Football in Houston. The Bears a 6.5-point underdog against C.J. Stroud and the Texans. 45 and a hook is the total. Joe, C.J. Stroud last year, more than 4,100 passing yards, walked away with the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year award, led his team to a playoff appearance, divisional title, and a playoff victory. A lot of those same expectations kind of being cast on Chicago and Caleb Williams. It's why this game is so intriguing. How do you see it playing out?
I like Houston laying the 6.5. I'm not sold on Caleb on the road. And again, I think the over comes smashing through on Sunday night. Even though Eberflus is an anchor, I think Houston will lead on that defense, especially when you saw the success that Tennessee had in the first half. I think Houston continues that.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, because the Texans now have the expectations. And last week they did not cover in a divisional game on the road to start a season against the Colts. 29-27, Indianapolis covers as a 3.5 point home underdog. Now under C.J. Stroud, 3-6 against the spread. Are the Texans booked as the favored side? I think Chicago keeps this game closer than 6.5. Maybe even wins outright on the road, but I'm more optimistic about the Bears than my compatriot here, Joe Lisi. Lacey guy, let's get the people set for week 3 of the 2024 college football season. And we only have 2 ranked versus ranked games this weekend. One of them happens on this Friday night. And dare I say, the best game of week 3 is not Saturday, as is often the case. It's on this Friday. Top 20 tilt in the Little Apple of Manhattan, Kansas. 14th ranked Kansas State takes on 20th ranked Arizona. Both Wildcats, both Big 12 teams in yet a non-conference game. This does not impact the Big 12 standings. It was a previously scheduled matchup. Line is working a little bit. 6.5 now in favor of K-State. It was 7.5 earlier this morning. Total 60 and a hook. Who wins the Battle of the Cats tonight in the Little Apple?
I think Kansas State does, and I expect Avery Johnson to have a huge performance tonight. Took him over the 42.5 in regards to his rushing total. I don't know about the total, but I think K-State can run it on that front seven the way New Mexico was able to do with Dan Pierre, their quarterback. Look for Avery Johnson and that offensive line to eat. I think it's a big performance. They win by double digits.
Listen, the ground game is the key factor here, in my opinion, for K-State. DJ Giddens last week against Tulane, 114 yards on the ground, also 63 receiving yards and a touchdown. Make that 6 consecutive games for Giddens with at least 102 yards. His rushing yards prop tonight, 100 and a hook. That dates back to the final 4 games of last year for K-State. Arizona allowed 210 yards to New Mexico in week number 1. Devin Dampier, that quarterback, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Avery Johnson, rushing yards prop now up to 45.5. The speedster at QB for K-State, I think, goes over the number. 37 rushing yards in the first 2. But I think Arizona covers somehow, some way. Don't like the line now under a touchdown, but I did bet it earlier today with a little profit boost on the FanDuel Sportsbook up to 10.5. Arizona, the best underdog team in the country last year, 6-0 against the spread. More FFC college football talk next.
The boys of summer become the champions of fall.
The World Series is on its way.
And SportsGrid brings you every angle. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. SportsGrid TV and radio networks are the premier streaming video and audio channels dedicated to serving the sports wagering audience. Found on major smart TV platforms and streaming on SportsGrid Radio and Sirius XM Channel 159. SportsGrid's real-time data, expert commentary, and entertaining analysis transform viewers into informed sports enthusiasts. Our weekday radio lineup begins with the early line at 8 a.m. Eastern with Ben Stevens and Donnie Rightside. Donnie joins Kevin Walsh on Money Line at 11 a.m. Eastern, followed by Football Full Circle at noon Eastern. Kaplan and crew join the party at 1 p.m. Eastern, and Pharrell Coast to Coast keeps things rolling from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Get in the mix with Kevin Walsh and Game Time Decisions at 6 p.m. Eastern. Evenings simmer with Carver and Lisi, then boils over with Gabe Moritzi on Sports Rage Late Night at 10 p.m. Eastern. To find out where to find SportsGrid that's best for you, go to sportsgrid.com. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right. For about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back. But you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no upfront costs, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. 800-797-1292. That's 800-797-1292.
Think of us as your cool roommate that has this innate gift of somehow always picking winners and never bugs you about doing the dishes or paying rent. Sports gaming strategies and information 24/7.
Get the winning edge.
This is the SportsGrid Radio Network. You're listening to Football Full Circle with Joe Lisi and Ben Stevens.
Just ate a sneeze before we came live on air. That's how you know we're locked in for the college football slate on Saturday. One of the best games of the weekend tonight in Manhattan, Kansas, between K-State and Arizona, which means, Joe, our only ranked versus ranked game of Saturday is 24th ranked Boston College on the road in Columbia, Missouri, against the Tigers, who are ranked 6th in the nation, just as we expected. Top 25 tilt between BC and Mizzou. Line not necessarily reflecting a close outcome. 16.5 points in favor of Missouri. Total 53.5. How do you see it playing out?
Yeah, I don't love this game, but I think they're begging you to take Boston College, and that's why I like Missouri here in this matchup. 2 straight shutouts with Murray State and Buffalo. We know the quarterback situation. Brady Cook and Thomas Castellanos. Boston College wants to pound the rock with Trayshawn Ward, 282 per game. Yeah. That goes right into the front 7. This game, to me, Ben, very tight heading into halftime. Second half, Missouri pulls away, and somehow, some way, they cover the number. But I don't love it, 16.5. I expect Cook, though, to have some success over the top the way DJU did. Cook could have a 300-yard performance.
2 of 34 teams that enter Week 3 a perfect 2-0 against the spread. Missouri has been favored in both. They have shut out both of their opponents, thus the best scoring defense in college football. Also only allowing 127 yards per game. Just 9-11 against the spread as the favored side with Eli Drinkwitz as the head coach since 2021, but 4-3 last year, of course, when they won double-digit games. Lisa Guy, what's been fascinating, Brady Cook, only 1 touchdown pass so far this season, 3 on the ground, but last year against ranked opponents, 6 games, 275 in all 6, 8 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I think Missouri wins this game comfortably. Not sure I'm about to lay 3 touchdowns or 3 scores, but I would keep an eye on the props. Brady Cook and hopefully Luther Burden picking it up offensively in this matchup. Marquee matchup from the brand perspective, but is it going to be a good game tomorrow in Camp Randall in Madison? 4th-ranked Alabama makes the trip up to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers. 15.5-point spread in favor of the Crimson Tide. The Badgers, more than a 2-score underdog at home? What gives, Lisi?
No, they've only played once since 1928. It started in the week 1 in 2015, and Bama got the 17-point win. I mean, they have no passing offense with Tyler Van Dyke right now. So here's the thing. Speed kills. We know that there's a speed advantage. I'm going to take the points, though, Ben. I'll tell you why. This is why you got Luke Fickell in Camp Randall, specifically for this type of game, right? And again, they can't run it on that front 7. I know Byron Brown and that offense in UCF kept it close, but you have to attack this defense over the top. This is why you got Phil Longo as the OC. Again, I don't think they win, but they have to cover this number. Otherwise, it would be a terrible hire in regards to what Luke Fickell has done in a year and maybe 2 games up until this point.
A lot of people, myself included, looked at year 2 under Luke Fickell and what he did at Cincy, taking a 4-win team and making them an 11-win team back in 2012. He did that with a veteran quarterback who we know in Desmond Ridder, who was not a veteran at the time, but a solid quarterback. I thought Tyler Van Dyke could be that in Phil Longo's Derry Raid offense. So far, Lisi Guy, they've scored 28 points and 27 points in their first 2 games of the year against Western Michigan and FCS foe South Dakota. They've won both by 2 touchdowns, but they've been an 18.5-point favorite in both of those games. The offense is struggling, 10 red zone trips, not a single passing touchdown in only 5 rushing scores. 88th red zone conversion percentage in the country. I want to say Wisconsin covers because of the motivation. Alabama's the right side in this game. I do not think the Badgers pull the upset. Can they keep it under 15.5? Maybe. Don't feel great about it. A big SEC Saturday, a big rivalry Saturday. LSU on the road against South Carolina. The Tigers less than a 6.5-point favorite. How does Notre Dame bounce back against Purdue? 9.5-point spread in favor of the Irish in West Lafayette. And Lacey Guy, the Apple Cup and the Civil War. That's Washington State, Oregon State, respectively. What do you like in some other games this weekend?
Love LSU, 19-2-1 all time. Best bet of the weekend. They roll them tomorrow.
All right, I won't put it on the betting card then because I think it's an overreaction to have the Bayou Bengals less than a touchdown favorite. I'll let that be your card, and I won't touch it. And I'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. College Football Today starting at 9 a.m. Eastern. He's Joe Lisi. I'm Ben Stevens. Football Full Circle returns on Monday, noon Eastern time. Have a great weekend.
Now you've done it.
You found the advantage for gaming, odds, and more. But we call it the winning edge for short. This is the SportsGrid Radio Network.